Gacha game players are a very strange bunch. No one wants power creep, but everyone wants their favorite character to be the strongest in the game. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's Josh, and we're touching on something today that, well, is a lot more relevant in Chaos Zero Nightmare than it has been before, and we're trying to see if this is actually a problem or not, which is the potential for different characters' pop-offness, how much they can pop off and do damage in a turn, the infinite characters, so to speak, that can chain a bunch of zeros together and just do crazy damage like Maylin and Tressa and Cassius. A lot of players are comparing some of the new characters that come out and saying they don't really even have the ability to do this. Why would I pull on them? Or even worse, like it makes those characters unusable. And why do I say it's going to become a lot more apparent quickly now? Well, that's because we just got the Great Rift. And well, if you go into the Great Rift and you check out the different rankings out here, you can actually look at the teams the top ranking players are using. And you'll notice that even though when I made a tier list video back in the day, the most broken characters, and even though I front loaded that video with literally basically every character is good enough to be used in all content right now, some are just going to have higher potential than others. It doesn't make the ones who aren't listed in the busted category unusable and trash. It just makes their potential lower. We need to see if that is a problem, because there's a growing sentiment that if my character isn't doing infinity damage, isn't a Maylin, they're dog water, right? That's not true, obviously, but what can we do about this? You can see that Mika, Cassius, Tressa, I'm sorry, I'm not going to take total credit, but well, I told y'all they were going to be absolutely busted when the game came out, and look at them now. Literally, basically every single clear has them as the carry team on the second part of this boss ranking. Which brings us to today's topic. What are we going to do, and what should we do with the combatants and how we view them power-wise inside of Chaos Zero Nightmare? Well, number one, first and foremost, the characters that have the ability to pop off, that have the ability to play a bunch of zero cards, that have the ability to just reduce AP costs or give you AP, filter through your deck, do the Go Infinite where you can cycle through 15 to 20 cards every single turn. Those characters are just going to be more inherently powerful than those who don't, right? And you could see that in the tier list. We had characters like Maylin, Veronica, Tressa, Mika, Cassius, Nia. Ray was listed as top tier. All of those were in the busted category of my tier list. And they all do one of two things. They either pop off themselves, right? They have the ability to abuse the characters who cycle through the deck and generate AP with a certain epiphany, like Maylin does, as you guys probably know by now, with this epiphany of the Rising Dragon Spire that just does an extra hit per passion card played that turn. Sometimes even in conjunction with some of her other epiphanies for, I do believe it's Spirit of the Armada, that anytime anyone plays a passion card on your team, she's going to get a 20% damage bonus as well. You just pair those together, and then you just do dumb stuff with some of the supports, right? You pay a bunch of zeros, you draw a bunch of cards, you cycle through your deck, and then you pop off and do a bunch of damage. So then you have those characters who take advantage of and can pop off damage-wise and turn all of that card draw and all of the AP into damage. And then you have the other characters like Mika, like Nia, like Ray, like Veronica, who are the supporting cast, drawing the cards, buffing the damage, generating the AP, right? Doing all of the really busted stuff support-wise for the pop-off characters to take advantage of. Outside of those two archetypes, everyone else is just going to be inherently on a weaker power level, because in a card game like Chaos Zero Nightmare is, card game mechanics, man. There's two resources: the amount of cards in your hand and the amount of mana you can use to spend on those cards. And if you have zero cost cards that add cards to your hand, well, that's just inherently going to be a little bit of a busted generic strategy no matter how you slice it, right? That's just how it's going to be. That's inherently stronger than I'm putting up shields and counterattacking every turn. Doesn't mean that putting up shields and counterattacking for a bunch of damage isn't good, isn't going to get you there, can't make you do a bunch of damage every turn. It just means that the potential is way lower. So how should we feel about this as a community? I'm not going to tell you how you should feel about it, but I'm going to tell you how I feel about it. And then you can put it down in the comment section below, your response to that. So this leaves a swath of the cast who just doesn't inherently play very well with these super high potential characters. They either don't generate a bunch of AP, they don't draw a bunch of cards, or they don't have a card that's like, do damage for every action you've taken this turn, right? This leaves characters like Magna, like Orlia, sometimes even someone busted like Calliope, even though she is like an incredibly versatile, incredibly busted character, she's not going infinite. They have a limit on what they can do in their team per turn. People like Luke, even people like Renoa, people who have card mechanics where I want to fill my hand with bullets, dump them in the graveyard, add them back, dump them again. That's cool. You still have a limitation. You're not cycling through the entire deck because, well, at some point your hand gets full of bullets and stuff. Amir, Owen, Lucas, Maribel, all of these other characters don't really have that sort of abusive cyclical gameplay pattern. What does this mean, though, for everyone else? Well, in my opinion, I think it's a very interesting design space. And I think what we should do is approach it from this perspective. Now, if they're designing characters that don't play into one of those two gameplay styles, they don't have a pop-off DPS potential, or they don't have a supportive potential that allows other pop-off characters to want them in the party. They're not drawing cards, they're not generating AP, they're not doing all that cool stuff. What is it that they should do? They should do one of two things, in my opinion, and I think we started to see this, and we saw this with a character like Yuki and a character like Beryl, right? Beryl is a very strong character, and also I know I get a lot of hate because I don't put Beryl in like broken tier or tier 0. I put her in like tier 0.5 because she's sort of halfway there. She's got the ability to draw a ton of cards, right? With like Guilty Pleasure, do a bunch of cool stuff, draw cards, 0 mana, very fun, much wow. And I always rate her just a little bit lower than the likes of like Ray and Nia and those characters, because the other side of her kit is this like slower, like kind of hanging out. I'm going to do damage a couple of times. You know, I'm going to buff up my retain. I'm going to do more damage at the end of the turn for free. I'm going to be AP efficient that way. But she's limited by, well, she can only do X amount of damage as a sub DPS or support per turn. She's only allowing you to do X amount of extra things per turn. And if you're going to put her in your party to just draw a bunch of cards, and that's the only thing you want her to do, then maybe there's a couple other characters that you would rather have in your party to just keep drawing cards continuously over and over and over. So what do we want here? We want two other archetypes of characters, right? We already have the busted, I cycle through my deck. We have the busted, I take advantage of people cycling through my deck. And then we have these two other ones. We have the, I'm sort of a slower, but kind of high efficiency for my AP cost characters. So this is the characters that are like, I don't know, Magna, the counter characters where you can be like, I'll put in, 1 or 2 AP on this card, on this upgrade that allows me to do something for free every turn. What I would like the developers to do is maybe take a look at the AP cost to benefit ratio of these slower type characters, right? Maybe they have too low of a damage ceiling or too low of a support ceiling, but also have too low of a floor as well. So like their potential might start here and end here, whereas some of the other characters, well, they start a little bit lower, but the potential's way up here. What we need to do is raise the floor of these characters, maybe make a couple of these things cost a little bit less, maybe up the numbers a little bit, just so they can just be a fair characters. Make the fair characters a little bit easier to use. Maybe you don't need to pop off so high with them, and they can still do really good stuff. I know there's going to be a balancing act with all of that, but I think you guys get the general gist of what I'm saying. If a character has the ability to go giga high to the sky and one character doesn't go giga high to the sky, at least make the character who isn't going giga high to the sky like halfway to the sky with not nearly as much effort. Make them more consistent in some way. Give cards initiation, right? So they start in the hand, so you're able to do that. Don't tax characters like Magna extra 1 or 2 AP on some skills. Make them a little bit more AP efficient in general, because they don't have the crazy pop-off potential. The other thing that we did see a little bit of a sneak peek at, and I think this is something that they might be aiming to do, or they did it on accident. Everyone really was like, Yuki is just kind of trash, kind of garbage, doesn't feel too good. We generated a Yuki build that was pretty nice, and I hope that there's more characters that have a build like this. And this is the other category of character I would like to see more of, and I would like for them to focus on characters working like this more out of the box. So there's a build for Yuki that we try to popularize on the channel. I mean, whatever, it's fine. Like, it's cool. It's a good build. But it's the build that I put up like day one. I'm like, this is going to be an awesome build for her, and it's probably going to be the most generic used build for her. And it's like the super self-sufficient, prepare to subdue, draw all of my own cards out, you know, use one of these 2 epiphanies that draw multiple cards, either get the damage bonus one, or even if it's just draw 2 and they have a damage decrease one. Draw some of my own attack cards, right? And then play those attack cards for, you know, 0 AP. Make myself super efficient. So you'd go for like the 0 cost flash slash inspiration. You draw it out of the deck with your own 0. It costs 0 as well. You can attack for free. You get the trickery strike, right? That turns into a 1 attack cost 260 mod, but if you inspire it, then it costs 0. So you'd be able to spend a 0, draw 2 cards that both cost 0, do 2 attacks for 0. And it'd be like this archetype of character who's good at drawing some of their own stuff, maybe a combination of their own stuff in someone else's stuff, and then playing some like not low damage cards, but some cards that are going to apply pressure to the enemy, are going to debuff the enemy, whatever it is that you want them to do. Allow these characters to kind of just have a role as the third party member in basically any team. For instance, like this Yuki build, you can actually go see someone using, I think on the top leaderboard, Yuki probably, I think with maybe like Chizuru. It's just kind of like a fair build. And they have this very fair, very self-sufficient Yuki build where the Yuki's just drawing her own cards out of the deck, playing them for free, and then doing damage to the enemies that Chizuru has put the Curse Shackles on, because you're spending 1 for Karmic Flames, no mana at all, and hitting the Curse Shackle target a bunch with these free cards off of Yuki, so you can generate Will-O-the-Wisp stacks, get Shadow of the Moon Plus, and then the third character is also just drawing a bunch of cards and helping Chizuru pop off even more and playing the rest of the deck out for her. But Yuki's just kind of sitting there and hanging out and being entirely self-sufficient. I really like this super self-sufficient character archetype that you can put together with a character like Yuki. And I'm not saying it's the only one that's good for her, but I think that would be a nice direction for some future characters when they are released, because no one likes the ability for them to pull for their favorite character and not really have a place for them, right? No one's going, oh man, should I pull for this new character? What do they do? How much damage do they do? We all go here, we stare at the banner and we go, all right, man, I'm going to the rescue banner. Why am I pulling for Chizuru, right? Number one, it's going to be, do you like the design? Is she your favorite character? If so, then it doesn't matter how good she is, you're going to pull for her anyway. Outside of that, though, we go, all right, I kind of like the design. What can she do for my account, though? What is she going to do for me? Is she going to be a better damage dealer than the damage dealers already have if the character's already a damage dealer? What niche does she fill? Well, if she can't pop off, she can't be super I'm not saying that this is about Chizuru, by the way. She can pop off. I think she's awesome. But if a character's like, can't pop off, do a bajillion damage, and be that like really high potential skill ceiling infinite character, doesn't do that, doesn't help a character who can have a high potential, support them in some way, draw a bunch of cards, doesn't do that. If they're not super self-sufficient, why would I want them on my account? If they're just like your average run-of-the-mill, they're kind of fine, don't really do anything special character. And so if she's not super pop-off potential, not a super support, not someone who is super self-sufficient and can draw their own cards out of the deck and sort of be good at affecting the gameplay in the battle just by existing for very low AP costs per turn for your party. And if they're just not a very fair, high damage, high floor character where you're just like, I'll play a couple things and they're really high impact, why would you want them on your party if they're not any of those four things? Why would you want to play with that character? And I think that's a very good question a lot of players ask. And I feel like the community, every time a new character comes out, those are the four things they're really thinking about, even if they don't really put it out there in that way. A lot of the times it's like, oh, this character doesn't do giga damage, they're trash, right? It's not Mei Lin. Everyone's not Mei Lin. It's a fair point. I don't think everyone's going to be Mei Lin. I don't think everyone needs to be that giga pop-off character. I think there's a couple of different archetypes like we talked about that would be cool for a character to fall into. And those are the two that I would add, which is the super self-sufficient one. Or if you want to just make fair characters, give them the benefit of the doubt. See as a developer that they're not going to be part of any sort of insane combos. And if they're not part of any insane combos, maybe they shouldn't have a bunch of like 2-cost cards that don't really affect the battle all that much, or 2-cost cards that don't do a whole ton, right? Maybe we should be not giving characters 2-cost cards that are upgrades that give them 1 counterattack every turn. Maybe that should just be a free. Give it initiation, things like that. Make those characters who are just middle of the road, they're not going to be part of any broken combos, make them easy to use. Make the players who are using those characters in their party, hey, you can come join my party, you'll do your thing. I don't gotta like come up with some crazy strategy to make you work, but I will like having that character in my party. And I think those are the two things that they should really look at when adding characters to Chaos Zero Nightmare, because I don't want this game to become every character is either Mei Lin or every character is Nia or every character is Mika, which is what we're gonna get if we bitch and complain too much that all of the characters are just not strong enough, because there's more than one way to be strong in this game. We're just really seeing the top 2 ways right now, which is potential and draw cards to make the potential characters really good. If you have another archetype of character you think would be cool to have them focus on in CZN, put it down below. Start a discussion. Have fun out there. God bless, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.